welcome you. Wherever you come from, we welcome you. Whomever you love, we welcome you. Whomever you love, we welcome you.
Good morning. We do welcome you here to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Kent. I'm the Reverend Stephen Protzman, your minister, coming to you live from the Annex this morning. Thank you for joining us as we gather virtually once again, a spiritual community that seeks to be diverse and inclusive as we inspire love, work for justice, and grow together in community. Wherever you are this morning, we welcome you. May this time together be filled with joy, with belonging, with hope, and with the promise of who we can be together. I want to take a moment to express my thanks to our team who is leading worship, including those who won't be seen on camera. Thank you, all of you. We are a people who care for one another and value the connections we have with each other and with this community. And once again, welcome to worship this morning.
A fictional alien race from the Star Trek franchise, have a philosophy: infinite diversity in infinite combinations, abbreviated to IDIC. I used to have an IDIC necklace that I wore proudly in high school, even though my peers probably had no idea what it was, because I deeply identified with this philosophy that insisted all races, creeds, cultures, and life has unique characteristics to contribute. IDIC celebrates the diversity found in the universe instead of expecting it to blend into a monoculture. I realize that I'm pretty much a white bread American cis woman. I have no real ethnic or cultural background beyond that. Sure, I'm part German and Slovak, but these are not cultures with which I identify or grew up involved with. So I'm just about as vanilla as they come. I can blend into a crowd and not be noticed. That is the luxury of my privilege, I know, and the lens from which I view the world. But I recognize that others have a different lens on the world based on the color of their skin, their religion, their gender identity, and/or sexual orientation. These groups are marginalized even though they are not always the minority group. As someone who appreciates diverse viewpoints and strives to make the world a better place for everyone, I try very hard to put myself in the shoes of others to understand their experiences as best as I can as an outsider. The only way we can enact change is by recognizing our differences as well as our shared experiences and by listening to each other. Listening is the hardest part. In my experience, humans are very good tellers and pretty terrible listeners. The real question we need to consider is how we, as a larger community, can support each other and our common interests without stepping on our own feet. How do we bridge the gap between the goals of the larger community and the multitude of political identities within our community so that we're all on the same page? Come, let us enter into the spirit of worship.
We join Unitarian Universalists across the country in lighting a chalice, a sign of life's beauty and wonder, a symbol of peace and hope, an invitation to continue our ongoing search for the light of truth within and among us, and a reminder that we are all interconnected in the great web of existence of which we are each a beloved part. As I light our shared chalice, I invite you to light your home chalice. Would you join me now in the words of our covenant written by James Villa Blake? Love is the spirit of this church, service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. In these uncertain times, in the midst of life with its many twists and turns, the challenges and struggles we face, the hopes and dreams we all have, it is important to take time to return again to the truest home we have, the home of our spirit, and turn inward for a few moments to connect with life, with the mystery, with the God of our hearts and our understanding, to nurture our spirits with silence and the care of this gathered community, call to mind the joys and sorrows that come with living, and to reflect on the mystery that is life itself. I invite you now to use the chat box to share your joys and concerns with one another. Jen and Lois send their blessings to Megan as she leaves home to become an adult. Best wishes, Megan. Becky shares concerns, her brother having a rough time with his cancer. We send wishes for his healing and peace. We send our congratulations to Sonis. She and Ted celebrated their 35th wedding anniversary this week. Congratulations, Sonis. Dina is mourning the death, but celebrating the life of Janet Tipton, his mother to Bethany, baby sister to my mother, and beloved aunt to me. We hold you in our hearts and thoughts as you grieve. Jenny shares gratitude that Brooke's father had successful surgery this week. We send wishes for his healing. We hold Becky Klein in our hearts as she thinks of her 93-year-old mother who lost her last sibling this week. We send our sympathy and care. With a smile, with hope, with concern, let us take a few moments of silence now to hold those we've named in our hearts and minds, the concerns, the joys we've shared. Remember, we are connected to one another and to life itself. Let's enter a few moments of silence. Would you join me now in the spirit of prayer and reflection? We call out to the spirit of life and love, to the God of our understanding and our hearts. We call to you, in whom we share and find strength and common purpose, as we turn our minds and hearts toward one another, holding in this circle of care and concern all who need our love and support, those we've named in this time of remembrance, those in our hearts and thoughts, all who are ill, who are in pain, either in body or in spirit, those who struggle with addiction, those who are lonely, those who are grieving, the victims of any kind of abuse. We pray for them. We pray for ourselves too, that we would be grateful for the many blessings we receive each and every day and to use those blessings with joy, generosity, and kindness. We ask for help to live fully this life we have been given, to treat each and every moment as a rare and precious treasure, to worship what is of true worth, to practice radical hospitality, welcoming the stranger, to speak truth as we know it, and to join in the struggle for justice and peace in our world. and we ask for help. Help us to feel the heartbeat of life itself, to find wonder and awe in both the struggle and the beauty of life, to remember that we are connected in mystery and miracle to one another and all of creation, to care for this fragile planet and work for the well-being of every creature, to affirm life, and to walk upon this earth in gentleness and reverence. May it be so, and amen.
Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for its soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom. Circle round for peace. For all of us imprisoned. Circle for release. Circle for the planet. Circle for its soul. For the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom. Circle round for peace. For all of us imprisoned. Circle for release. Circle for the planet. Circle for its soul. For the children of our children. Keep the circle whole.
In our religious education classes, we often talk about how our church makes promises to each other. And we do that through making covenants together about how we'll worship, how we'll learn, and how we'll even play together. Now, the children and youth will tell all of you grown-ups that with every new year and each new group formed, we circle back to those covenants because we know that as we grow and learn, those words may need to change. We come back to them because our language sometimes changes as we grow bigger. For instance, use your walking feet in class eventually becomes respect this space. Or take turns becomes be sure to allow for everyone to have a chance to speak. These are language changes, but they're essentially the same thing. But there are other times when new promises need to be made as we grow and change and learn and we discover new things we want to include. Like one of my favorites from youth group, be intentionally inclusive, form croissants, not donuts. So just how the promises in our covenants change over time as we add new ideas, so have our 7 principles. Did you know that? It's true. Way back in ancient times, 1960, when our principles were first adopted, there were only 6. I'm going to use the language we use in the RE program for children to tell you those 6. Everyone is important. Be kind in all you do. We are free to learn together. We search for what is true. All people need a voice. And we build a fair and peaceful world. Those are the first 6. But in the oldie-timey days of 1985, Unitarian Universalists realized that something was missing. The 7th principle was adopted. And we say, we care for the web of life. We adopted the 7th principle because we realized that we wanted to state out loud and proud that we are all connected to each other, to the earth, to the spirit of life itself. And I really like our 7th principle. Now, some of you young people might have heard in church that ours is a living tradition. I wonder what that means. What does it mean to be a living tradition? Well, what does it mean to be living? Living means we breathe, we grow, and we change. And as we change, we learn new things. So I bet you wonder why I'm telling you all of this. Well, you see, over the last several years, there have been a lot of UUs wishing to add another principle to our living tradition. In RE for the last few years, we've been doing a lot of talking about some of the not so good things about our country, like racism and oppression, and how so many young people are growing up and speaking out and taking action to reduce the harm that is happening to Black people, Indigenous people, people of color, and our LGBTQ brothers and sisters. You see, as we've grown and learned over the years, many UUs of all ages believe that more work needs to be done to change this harm. And that is the work of dismantling, which means to take apart and to end racism and oppression. And that work needs to be done everywhere, within ourselves, within our churches, within our government, everywhere. So what is this 8th principle? Well, let me pull it up here and read it to you in the big fancy language. We, the members of the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and in our institutions. Well, that's a lot of words. So what if we added the 8th principle to our rainbow principles in RE? What would that say? I'll tell you. The 8th principle would say, we work to build a loving community that treats everyone fairly, whatever their skin color or group. I think that sounds nice. You might be saying to me, Miss Colleen, we already do that. Well, I agree. We do some of that work, and we have been doing some of that work for a long time. But think about this. By adding an 8th principle that specifically says that we want and strive to actively dismantle or take apart racism and oppression, we say loud and proud that we will still do the work and we will continue to do this very important work. And we say that to the whole world, that we will do it with ourselves, we will do it in our church, and we will work to change this world to make it a more peaceful and just place.
The first reading is an excerpt from A Self-Confessed White Supremacy Culture by Ann L. Schneider. Part of the idea behind using the phrase white supremacy culture and related concepts, such as microaggressions and white fragility, is that something needs to be done because explicit expressions of racism have declined over the past decade, but racial disparities have not changed much. Thus, something needs to be done to take white people by the shoulders, shake them up, wake them up, and get those who hold the most levers of power to prioritize racial disparities and undertake the political and public policy work needed to change that. There have been warning signs all along that the self-confessed new white supremacy culture paradigm probably would not work. In 1999, Black UU minister Reverend Dr. Thandeka said that the anti-racist theology and programs used by the UUA in its journey towards wholeness path to anti-racism would not work. At the heart of the problem is the focus on diversity or anti-racist training itself. Where is the action? Where is the political movement to bring together people of all races across all social classes into one powerful movement to focus attention on all sorts of oppression? No one person can make much of a dent in racial disparities in income, housing, health, education, and other quality of life indicators, because no one acting alone, including most white people, has enough power to change the institutions that reproduce these disparities. Collective political action is required. It is too early to give up on solving the racial disparity crisis in this country, but new strategies are needed. The UUA and other groups engaged in anti-racist training need to create a new message and new initiatives. We need a message of hope instead of guilt or discouragement, a message of inspiration instead of despair, a message of inclusion instead of segregation, a message that breaks down barriers or race, ethnicity, gender, sexuality, to find commonalities even as we cherish our differences. The second reading is several quotes from John Lewis. Now we have to create a sense that we are one community, one family. Really, we are the American family. And when we finally accept these truths, then we will be able to fill Dr. King's dream to build a beloved community, a nation, a world at peace with itself. I want to see young people in America feel the spirit of the 1960s and find a way to get in the way. To find a way to get in trouble, good trouble, necessary trouble. What I try to tell young people is if you come together with a mission and it's grounded with love and a sense of community, you can make the impossible possible. There may be some difficulties, some interruptions, but as a nation and as a people, we are going to build a truly multiracial, democratic society that maybe can emerge as a model for the rest of the world. Though I may not be here with you, I urge you to answer the highest calling of your heart and stand up for what you truly believe. In my life, I have done all I can to demonstrate the way of peace, the way of love, and nonviolence is the more excellent way. Now it is your turn to let freedom ring. When historians pick up their pens to write the story of the 21st century, let them say that it was your generation who laid down the heavy burdens of hate at last, and that peace finally triumphed over violence, aggression, and war. So I say to you, walk with the wind, brothers and sisters, and let the spirit of peace and the power of everlasting love be your guide.
I want to thank Joel Slater for purchasing a sermon topic and choosing an intense topic that has invited me to look at identity politics, racial justice, and what is happening in the UUA. This morning is an invitation to you to join me in wrestling with what is happening in our country and our association. After our congregation put the words Black Lives Matter on our church sign, I received this note in the mail. Dear Reverend Protzman, you say Black Lives Matter, but the truth is all lives matter. Why do you shy away from that fact? Are you bending over backwards to seem so politically correct? You may imagine yourself as virtually signaling your goodness, but you are in fact spreading racial divisiveness at a time when that is the last thing the country needs. I suggest you repeat all lives matter until you understand that truth. In warmest regards, there was no signature or name or postmark. This writer is calling me out, and by association our congregation and Unitarian Universalism, for identity politics, for what the writer sees as the Merriam-Webster dictionary defines it, promoting specific interests or concerns without regard to the interests or concerns of any larger political group. If the writer of that anonymous letter, and I'm assuming the same caller who left me a similar message this week on the phone, has done any research into Unitarian Universalism, they know we UUs have always been engaged in identity politics, even though the term itself wasn't created until 1977. The heart of our theology and shared spirituality is a call to the work of social justice, grounded in the Unitarian truth that we are all interconnected, all one, and the Universalist truth that no one is outside the love that sustains and holds all of us. In the 19th century, Unitarian preacher Theodore Parker was a prominent abolitionist, defending fugitive slaves and offering support to American abolitionist John Brown. Other reformers included Universalists such as Charles Spear, who called for prison reform, and Clara Barton, who founded the American Red Cross. Unitarians such as Dorothea Dix worked for the dignity and rights of people in mental hospitals. Samuel Gridley Howe started schools for the blind. In the 20th century, we have been leaders in civil rights, marriage equality, women's rights, the peace movement, and immigration reform. It's been said that all politics is identity politics. At its best, identity politics and the concept of political correctness is about promoting the needs and the concerns of the oppressed and seeking to leverage power for creating greater equality in our society. Isn't the common good and the care of the most vulnerable among us the most noble goal of government? The trouble comes because we don't agree on what the common good is, and our country continues to fracture. If you're following the news, you're probably aware of how the language of political correctness and identity politics has become weapons for both the left and the right. The left calls out the right for being racist and white supremacists, and the right fights back by claiming that whites are now the primary target of discrimination. Writer Amy Chua says, the real danger here is that when groups feel threatened, they retreat into tribalism. When groups feel mistreated and disrespected, they close ranks and become more insular, more defensive, more punitive, more us versus them. And it leaves the United States in a perilous new situation. Almost no one is standing up for an America without identity politics, for an American identity that transcends and unites all the country's many subgroups. Although identity politics shapes our social justice work as an association, we are not immune to its potential divisiveness. Since 1961, when the UUA was founded, we have sought to be an anti-racist institution, but every strategy we've tried so far has come up short of our vision, and there have been some serious conflicts through the years. Our current strategy involves our understanding of white supremacy culture. There are two distinctly different definitions or understanding of what white supremacy culture means. The standard definition is a belief in the inherent superiority of one race over another that gives white people the right to dominate, exploit, exclude, and even exterminate people of color. This refers to extreme right-wing white nationalists, the alt-right, and other groups that openly claim the white race is superior to people of color. The second definition contends that white supremacy culture is an entire system of domination based on the assumption of a white culture that includes all of the values, institutions, practices, and ways of doing things in the United States. There is an even more specific articulation of white supremacy culture found in an essay by Tima Okun from 2001 that posits 15 characteristics of white supremacy culture, including perfectionism, paternalism, either-or thinking, objectivity, and individualism. The UUA's current approach to anti-racism work is using the second definition and drawing on Okun's work as well. Having experienced it, I am struggling with it. I attended a denominational meeting not long ago in which the speaker said, "We're not going to start on time because starting on time is a part of white supremacy culture." That caught me by surprise, but I didn't question it at the time. Now I find myself questioning the use of Okun's characteristics of white supremacy culture. And when I do, there is pushback and accusations that I'm expressing my white fragility and an inability to acknowledge my whiteness as oppressive. It feels like this language has become a weapon we're using on ourselves. In the book, the first reading came from, Schneider has written an assessment that in naming our entire culture as white supremacy culture, the words white supremacy lose their power and their association with the true evil of white supremacy, which elevates white people as superior. Schneider's critique of the UUA also suggests that Unitarian Universalists have accepted a doctrine of race that indicts 95% of us as helpless, passive sinners, in spite of us denying the concept of original sin and a commonly held belief that we are in charge of our own destinies. Is this the best way to become an anti-racist institution? How do we affirm our inherent worth and dignity and see that in others who are potential allies if we are quick to reject our power and privilege and label ourselves as sinful? Let me be clear. I am not for one moment denying that racism is a harsh reality in this country that is destroying Black lives. In response to the anonymous letter, I posted the following message on Facebook. I don't shy away from the truth that all lives matter. It's our first UU principle. But until the racism that destroys countless Black lives is over, until Black people can go about their lives without white people calling the police on them for walking or eating or just being, until redlining stops, until police no longer shoot innocent Black people and get away with it, until the promise of equality is truly realized, I will continue to say Black lives matter, a deeper truth I understand. I am strong in my commitment to racial justice and to using my power and privilege to work toward ending racism in our country so that Black lives are valued as much as white lives. And I have hope that in spite of the language of white supremacy culture that is dividing us and has been adopted as a tool for anti-racism work, our association will find a better way to be anti-racist. One of the reasons I have hope is the proposal of the 8th UUA principle that Colleen shared with us. We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantles racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. What will those actions be? The youth in our congregation want to raise their voices in protest and in hope. Let's support them. Let's join them. Let's collaborate with each other and with others in Kent and beyond. This is a unique moment in history. Even though COVID is rampaging across our country, there is a spirit of freedom crying out for justice, for peace, for equality. And I believe America is at a defining moment. John Lewis said in the second reading, now we have to create a sense that we are one community, one family. we are the American family, really. And when we finally accept these truths, then we will be able to fulfill Dr. King's dream to build a beloved community, a nation, and a world at peace with itself. There may be some difficulties, some interruptions, but as a nation and as a people, we are going to build a truly multiracial, democratic society that maybe can emerge as a model for the rest of the world. So I say to you, walk with the wind and let the spirit of peace and the power of everlasting love be your guide. So may we continue to journey toward the promised land where we will all be truly free together. May we join in this holy work we are called to do, the work of dismantling racism through our actions. May it be so, and together we can make it so. Let's take a few moments to reflect in silence. Kristen Collins says, we give to remind ourselves how many gifts we have to offer. We give to remember that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. We give because we believe in music, love, beauty, and a sacred space where we can all belong. We give with the faith that together we have enough. This congregation, the UU Church of Kent, thrives because each of you believe in music, love, beauty, and sacred space. In spite of the need for physical distancing, we are strong as a community and able to be together virtually for worship, for community, for shared ministry. We also give to agencies and organizations in the Kent community beyond that serve those in need. This month's special offering is for the Miller House of Kent. Miller Community House provides emergency shelter to men, women, and children experiencing a housing crisis. In the spirit of gratitude for the gift of one another and this community, and the abundance that makes generosity possible, we now give and receive the offering as a sign of our shared commitment to social justice and the life and work of this congregation and beyond.
Make a building, a bank and a school and a lot of other buildings make a town, a river and a road and a lot of little towns make a county, a capital and industry and lots of other counties make a state. But what makes it grand, what makes it great, when we help each other keep calm and cooperate, shoulder to shoulder, sisters and brothers, building up each other, building community. Then the state of our union won't be a state of confusion, but a friendly communion. A place where you and me can live in harmony like a happy family. It's only human to serve humanity. You respect me, we respect each other. Standing for each other's rights like a sister or a brother. We never hesitate to reach out a hand to help another. We build up each other instead of tearing down, down, down. Then We won't just be a bunch of counties. We won't just be a bunch of towns. We won't just be a bunch of states. We'll be something much more great. And the state of our union won't be a state of confusion, but a friendly communion, a place where you and me can live in harmony like a happy family. You know, it's only human to serve humanity. From the state of Maine to the Golden Gate, from the Carolinas to the Bering Strait, from Hawaii to the Buckeye State, a friendly communion. We need to learn to cooperate. Let's start today, 'cause it's never too early. Then love and harmony will be the state of our union. Then love and harmony will be the state of our union.
Thank you, Katie. That was wonderful and so well said and sung. Now, to bring our time of worship to its close, would you join me in the words for extinguishing our chalice? We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. May we carry these in our hearts and minds until we are together again. These are the words of John Lewis once again. When historians pick up their pens to write the story of the 21st century, let them say that it was your generation who laid down the heavy burdens of hate at last, and that peace finally triumphed over violence, aggression, and war. So I say to you, walk with the wind and let the spirit of peace and the power of everlasting love be your guide. And now, renewed in our call to the work of racial justice, and refreshed in our vision of a promised land where we will truly all be free, let us go forth in joy and hope to continue inspiring love, seeking justice, and growing in community. May it be so. Blessed be. Amen.